I'm gonna translate, which as I said before the break. So now we say in the end of that offering, please bestow accomplishments, so bestow the cities, and then after that, after having obtained the cities, so then we come to the next page, which is the praise of sign. And so having received the city is that the city is the attainment of like 5 attributes of the deity, which is the deity's enlightened body, speech, mind, qualities and activities. And these are actually complete within everybody's body, speech and mind, within body, speech and mind of one person. And so the 5 afflictive emotions are what are being transformed into those enlightened body, speech, mind, activities, and qualities. And that is how into what it matures or ripens. These qualities is explained in this praise of signs. So then what happens when all of these attributes have ultimately matured or ripened? And so then they ripen into the 5 dhyani Buddhas. And so then the enlightened, the body is Vairocana, the speech is Amitabha, and the mind is Akshobhya, and the qualities is Ratnasambhava, and activities is Amoga Siddhi. And so these 5 are related to the afflictions of ignorance, desire, hatred, pride, and jealousy. And so these ripen into those 5 qualities. It's just like an ice block melting. Once the ice has melted, then you have water that you can actually use for something. Then it becomes useful. So then, for example, one performs activities that benefit others. So who would be an example of someone who has matured into that state, ripened into that state? For example, from a dharma perspective, that would be His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And from a worldly perspective, in this world, there are also many individuals who engage in activities that bring great benefit to the people of this world. So it's not just that these beneficial activities only happen in the Dharma and only the Buddha does them and nobody else. Because actually the Buddha appears in whichever way necessary to tame beings according to their needs, appearing in the 6 realms in order to benefit sentient beings. For example, in America, people look up at someone like George Washington, the founder of the country, and when they sing the anthem, they touch their hand at their heart and think with love of George Washington, the founding father, and remember that he was the one who gave us this free country of independence. And so that is, in a mundane sense, even a worldly person can be like that. And that is really very significant, just to provide people with the opportunity to live in a free country. Because in other places it's not like that. For example, in the communist country and so on, there you don't have any freedom, and there are very strict laws, and and some places you're not allowed to speak up and to say, have a voice, and some people suffer so much from the suppression that they even set their bodies on fire and so on. So there's a lot of suffering in some places, and not in a country like America, for example. So we can see that beneficial activities really occur in the Dharma and in the world. Anything that brings about a benefit, that benefits others. So in this way, those 5 attributes are complete within the body, speech, and mind of one person. So when a person has these qualities, then whether it's a dharma or a worldly activity, they will have wisdom, and with wisdom they perform activities. So these are the enlightened activities. And then they do things that benefit others. So the 5 afflictive emotions have ripened into the 5 wisdom, have ripened into wisdom. And so now here for the praise of science, the praise of science expresses the meaning of the various symbols that adorn the deity. So the outer appearance of the deity, the color and the implements and ornaments and so on, all represent an inner quality in the deity's mind. It's called the praise of science. And in the secret mantra, especially, the meaning is expressed through signs, symbols, and then their meaning. And so an outer symbol, an outer an outer symbol, for example, is a top ornament, a crown made of the 5 Buddha families, and that has a meaning. So this crown ornament, for example, is a sign of having ripened the 5 afflictive emotions into the 5 wisdoms. Or some deities hold a vajra and bell, and that is a sign of the union of emptiness and compassion, that emptiness and compassion never separate from the mind, and so forth. So each of those implements has a certain meaning. So here it begins, for instance, with the moon that clears and the sun that obliterates and so on. So the sun and the moon have an illuminating quality. So they illuminate the outer world, for example. And on the inner level, what they point at, the quality that they represent, is that the deities have turned away from the attachment to samsara. And so there is no dualistic grasping in their mind, and therefore their quality is that they illuminate the darkness of ignorance, the darkness of dualistic grasping, just like the sun and the moon. They illuminate the darkness of the mind. And so you can just read through it. It is just according to the words. So each of these represent a certain qualities in the deity's mind. And so basically, the deities appear in order to tame sentient beings in the 6 realms of samsara according to their needs. And so there's this one story about Marpa, Tsewang, and Marpa had a lot of disciples. And among them, at that time, Milarepa was actually the one disciple that was considered the worst. And Marpa would always beat him and treat him really harshly. And Milarepa really was known as the one that you kind of look down on. And then there was a time when Marpa gave empowerment to an assembly of disciples. And actually the words that he spoke during that time are recorded, so we can now see these words, what exactly Marpa said at that time. And so at that time, when he gave the empowerment, there were many of his great disciples who themselves were lamas under golden parasols and so on. And Milarepa was still the lowest one who was always humiliated. And in any case, so at that time, when Marpa gave the empowerment, Marpa said that it is due to Milarepa's great courage that in the future the Buddha's teachings will have a life force tree. So he gave this really profound prophecy at that time. And now when we look back and read those words that Marpa spoke, we can really see that he had already known that at that time. And now, in the present day in this world, for example, for us followers of the Kagyu lineage and so on, really we are followers of Milarepa. And when you think about the hardships that he had endured, so that we become now his followers, For example, even if we just, now it is through his inspiration that we sit there and we meditate and we have our back straight and we recite the mantra and we focus our mind a bit and so on. And then think about all the hardships that Milarepa had endured to gain that accomplishment, his experiences and his realizations. So many people can see that and they have great devotion and respect for Milarepa. And of course, he is just an example, and there is many more just like him, many real Buddhas that appeared in this world. It is just that we, as followers of the Kagyu lineage, remember Milarepa mainly, also because of those words that Marpa had spoken. So Milarepa, his legacy had really endured. So when we look in the present day, it's been a long time that he was alive, but how many people still follow him, and how many people are really his disciples? How many people engage in meditation practice inspired by him? And for example, how many people do this 3-year retreat where in the end, they have to soak a piece of cloth in cold water and then wrap it around their bodies to show signs of their tumu heat. So how many do that? And how many repas are there nowadays? How many yogis who practice? So we can see the great benefits that he has brought to the Buddha's teachings and to sentient beings. And that is the enlightened quality and the enlightened activity. When Milarepa was alive, at a different time, he was practicing in Nepal, at the Kataya cave. And so there was the king of this area, and he invited Milarepa to come, and he offered him some food and clothing. And so he sent some messengers to bring Milarepa back to the palace. And so then these messengers went there and invited Milarepa, but Milarepa declined the invitation, and he said, "I will not go. I'm fine, I have food to eat." And anyways, he is not the king, I'm the real king, because I have the kingdom of the dharma. And so then those messengers got quite irritated with him, and they said that you're just a beggar, you have nothing, you better go see the king, you might get a little bit of food and some clothing. So they were really quite upset with him. But Milarepa ended up not going, and so now we can see he was right. His kingdom survived until now. And that king's kingdom is long gone, and even his palace is nowhere to be seen in the present day. So that Nepali king's palace. And so that is due to the realization and the meditative experience of Milarepa. And so this kind of kingdom is unlike a mundane, a worldly kingdom. He doesn't need an ordinary army, he doesn't need ordinary weapons or atomic bombs and things like that. But his is the kingdom of the dharma. This is the kingdom that remains because of cause and effect, of karma. And so think about these qualities, the qualities of the dharma and the enlightened activities of someone like Milarepa. And so then for the qualities of the dharma, where does it go back to? It comes from the Buddha Shakyamuni, and the Buddha Shakyamuni had said, the essence of his teachings is completely tame your own mind. And this is really what Milarepa had done, what he had accomplished. And of course, there have been countless other masters who have accomplished that, but Milarepa is just a prime example of the Kagyu lineage, someone who really represents these qualities of enlightened activities and enlightened qualities.
Okay. 사지 좀 뒤에 가니 다다 라마 사지 라마 치도 내때나 사지 좀 뒤에 그 무슨 체마 다다 라바트니 다다 야탐 체치바 사지 레드를 비 주지들은 말해 내 다리라 말해서 코미레에서 대상고요 말해 그때 밀라레파 마파로도 거 말하시 마파로도 샘때 밀라레파 샘때 와 차요라시 샘때 이로 칼리시도 다送了 送的더 톡대로 톡 있으면 봐 라마나 있으면 봐 또네 되게 송들이 되게 용띠지 뒤송도 용띠지 렘바니가 동다데 다 심지는 힘라 네네 뒤동도 봐 뒤상에 봐 랑 동도네 랑 존네 지는 졸람 동거로 하지 솔로거 톡주거 꽃으로 솔로거 톡주거는 오늘 송데 톡되게 용띠 샤니 송 이 송되게 습기 탐지는 고발을 줘 이 틀레되게 다서다 습기 장매바 습기 장매바다다 이 감습들이 습기 탐지들이 답을 하나 고 대사와지는 용띠도 틀레 대사와다는 그 것에 말하시오 대송 톡 용띠 틀레도 대다워도 거는 들이 다다 로바타들 가이체고도 그걸 보체들 다다 그걸 보지 샘트 타고 그래 샘트 가리 다 채미 받자래 라야 너무나 당보 채미 받지 내가 자서 올 때 물어라고 요래 물어 말이 주 물어래 우리 사성 저같이 뒤선 거주 무슨 상 물어서 가서 사쪽에서 다음에 bes을 때고 요래 나한테 어쩌라더니 때리지 나한테 냠도 라냠도 대타고 요 말이면 차공냠도 쳐냠도 오는 제가 차를 말 베스다면은 또 라면 톡대 서롱도 되는 거를 보지 톡도 서로 땅은 거를 보지 톡대 라면 톡대 랑 샘섬 제발 가리도 하고 찍고 찍장 일마 제발이 오래 다다 프로그램도 양식을 예리 다다 예미 좀 찍장 말 좀 거와 참베지 다들 말이 니지를 다 거와 참고 때리더니 대다와티 용진이 라마 참지 고성 성공된 처리지는 그래서다 사진 것을 라마 사진 것을 이제 어떻게지만 사진 의를 하바리 되면 대다와 사람들 돈 라마 교육이 시대 더 탑고래 센터 톰나 되는 게 되는 게 많이 센터도 다 요리 되게 다 배려래 너는 송톡송 용진 처리해서 다들 대답은 좀 대상을 따는 일단 뒤용뒤 잡지 소문들이 다 이제다 잡잡이마도 쓰다보다 잡잡이마도 쓰다와 랍차소 뭐야 내 말은 좀 반지면 되는 말은 반지 사다들이 나가 빼래지 사다 말이 좀 봐되는 저는 어떻게 다 탄거요면 다진이지 말하는 거데 니마다를 빼지 니마케 한번 봐줘 맞아 샘금 받을까래 다다 퍼빠나니 23년이 마셔야지 세니 마가 봐서다 니마드네 난 샘금 받을까래 나오냐 말이 나트저래 나오냐 봐야 나 샘금 내려 도네 있으면 나오냐 샘금 내려 그래서 나다가 뭐도 롱당으로 뱉으면다 나요네 다양 맞죠 지형 맞죠 맞죠 때 하고네 때 하고 와서 들다 뒤마 되게 다네 정도 사제적 공방 맡아봐도 라게 람통에 때 예사토 그래 너 라마가 샘지 톱 그래 또 라마티는 때들 나와게 빼테리 몽도세 내 룩때 마도 유모 뭐 가차오요리 야 얘도 차도 롱토바나니 뒤는 룽하가 사와듯이 들어가긴 잠라만 뭐 저거 요리 때래 니마도 나와니 빼데 때래 동남게 내마 통나 유모 동안 센도레스 디들한테니 한거를 빼마도 니게 저기 오 초월에 차래 보통봐 보고 독자들은 쪼라도 자기스는 마우스 컨트롤한다 다왜 심지 말을 받들이 뉴바다 그랬지 대답도 로작들이 싸서 저거래서 그러나 동부 사차로 풍부가 떨리들이 들이 랍상 나떨들이 거기에 이 센데 세고 세브를 쇠들이 못해 버렸지. 그래서 대비 맞춰보자도 니게 들어가다 그도 만나대 니지라지 바보 니지라지 그때 초이한테 가리 난또 남을 때는 가다 그래서 자쪽에서 사바다 니게게 가리 들린 유모도 파르도서 바토라 저는 코가지고 코가대 답을하는 저거 그래서 상하게야 라게 내용을 보고니 유모 하고는 내가 하고 그러면 세상 잡보다는 납상 대장도 진시다 진시대 세상 냠도 요거 진시 세상 가까이요 말 세상 때 요거까지 진시 매가 차대 이는 진시대 정모성처라 그러시라고 말아 진시 동물들이 유모 매지 대도 차대 대 하고를 들이다 다다 리비스 좀 놓아줘 저들이 대도 또 하고 성전에 다다 퍼블은 있어 만년에 되게 pombudu yubodu ts다가 두 가루도 때라서 봐 대서 좀 비시만 보자 차례 내가 동의가 나한테 되죠 좋아하게 돼 되게 좋다리시 너무 좋아서 가구님한테 탑쳤더니 가구들이 갖다 시에서와리 저당 대다 낭 돈이 성지 돈이 인계 성적 생겨오나 새 동바랑 하든지 뭐 왜는 무슨 라마탄체는 또 하는 거지 동바라 나기 때문에 이제 요래 그냥 좀 그바빠한 저서는 와 송이냐서 고다 시에다 나봐 톡장은 이제 시왕원 사지 공이지 뭐 가리나 되다에 송 가구ям 돼서 가구 거기에 타지도라지 선대 돈이 인지 송도고 봐 돈이 저라 플라고 상하더니 자동타고 나나나 지메 바지 내가 양 시대에서 붙어도 봐세 돈이 인지를 하죠 또 생동반이 인지야 동반이라고 생각을 때는 인지 살 때 가가도 되게 가가리를 말이 샘들다 돈이 시바지 돈이 가래리 나 진이 무덕스 때 하고는 되지 맞았다 돈이 다 돌아오래 때문에 사동만 낭동만 보여나 가지고 나오 나만 이 카카리에서는 죽고 나가 돈이 돌아요 말이 세분이 내려도 니요 말이 세분이요 말 나가니요 말 대답하더니 답시 돌든지 상태 돈이 인지 손도 요보다 레디 냠들요래 동안에 되는 거 가지고 사탄 저거지 그러니까 낭센데 니몽 아직 시간을 가서 돌아다 저기서 바로 제자 돌아다 뉴시 저기 좋아 나시 소제나니 뉴시가 다가 되고 뉴시들이다 또 파망을 나라서로 되지 알아요 뉴시에 봐지 그리 대답들을 이렇게 도서는 다들이 니몽가 좋아 쪽 내라서 봤더니 마드라들이 좋아하더래. 그래서 그냥 대단지 남시 초제 선바제 남시 총제 선바제 다른 정도로 대답 누지도 바로 진짜 저는 너는 누시도 가리 누시도 말 디와고 선한테는 다 포르죠. 내리 자신 보여가 나타니 자통고 선을 누시든 통진 누시 다리지 롱도야 듯이 느지를 다 통무요래 베트로 롱도야 듯이 느지 그 삼체 속에 납시랑 그 처는 랑은 나와랑 그러는 돈은 맞아봐 남가다가 대다가 느지 딱 바로 진짜 저도 먹고 가보던 느지야 요매고 나베바 차사리 나 매바라 고람지 매바 차사리 당연히 배신 걸로 따와니 봐 마도 로또 소도 탐제들이 좀 따라들이 나자요래 빼는데 무서워나 따다다 파신 코에 배잖아 맞지 깨버렸어 딱코 맞게버는 저도 라고요라 동물들이 맞지 깨버서 사망을 요래 내려 요지 세고 생각하래 요래 네 말이 배송어요 또는 뭐 차살 못 살지 다들 subjugating 세 연락들에 대해서 나자리 요래 당연히 이제 배칠 거는 there be say be the nangli 당이 숨자서 죽지 올 lokta 데라서 봐 기본 남배 성는데 제시 그거 말이 땅인 탈토가데 다 저기 봐 나기 인자 봐 땅이 말이 데를 마사고 뚱삼제 데를 마사고 지게 오면 라동도 데라 바카라 줘데 발나자게 제도로도 다데 세 조금 좀이 라서 같은지 subjugating 동체도 그래 발나자게 제도로도 저도 다데 세 조금 좀이 감태를 다 잠에 요래 대탐제라 동네 요래 어따 대탐제 누가 봐서도 너는 이제 subjugating 동체 요래
So we come to the praise of signs. So we visualize the form of the guru and the meaning of the various parts of his form. So for the nature of the guru himself, first we need to first understand that the guru's form is the Nirmanakaya, the speech is the Sambhogakaya, and the mind is the Dharmakaya. So how can we understand that? So for example, whom is just like that? For example, an embodiment of basically the Buddha himself. And in my view, really, that is someone like His Holiness the Dalai Lama. I see him really as not separate from the Buddha Shakyamuni himself. He really embodies the three jewels and the Buddha. And so some people might refute that and say, no, he's not the Buddha, he's the Dalai Lama, he's a person. But again, to that I say no, because when you look at Milarepa and Marpa, they don't have the same body, right? But their mind is one and the same. Milarepa had realized his guru's mind, and therefore their speech is also the same. Their mind is the same, the speech is the same. He has realized that his own mind is indivisible from the guru's mind. And the mind is really what's important, and the mind is expressed through the speech. The speech expresses the meaning of the twofold truth, and it benefits sentient beings and causes them to give rise to bodhicitta, causes them to realize the ultimate truth. So he's someone who himself has become liberated and is therefore able to show the path to liberation also to others through the speech. So the speech is said to be the Sambhogakaya. So the body is Nirmanakaya speech, Sambhogakaya, and the mind is the Dharmakaya. And in this way, sentient beings are in fact liberated from samsara. And in my view, therefore, the Dalai Lama certainly is an emanation of the Buddha, even greater because his enlightened activities are so vast. So limitless sentient beings can become established on the path to liberation. So that is accomplished through the enlightened qualities and the enlightened activities, and not the body, actually. So that is what we need to understand. And also this is now here in this context how we understand Guru Rinpoche. So his appearance really is a representation of his mind. So that is what we need to get at. It is his mind. We need to realize his mind. And what is his mind? It is a mind of the four immeasurables. And that's the nature of all the deities. Even 100 deities, their nature is the four immeasurables. And that's also what we call the ngundro, or the preliminary practices. And Jigten Sumgön had said that, to me, the preliminary practices are more profound than the main part practices. And the preliminary practices really is the practice of bodhicitta. Because as a preliminary, we have to become free of that self. And for that, we need to cultivate bodhicitta, because if we we hold on to the self, and while we hold on to the self, we try to practice the deity, for example. There is a contradiction here, because the self and the deity cannot be in your mind at the same time. It's either this or that. So it's just like, for as long as you're an ice block, you will not really connect to the water. You can't. So we need to get at the mind of Guru Rinpoche, which is a mind of bodhicitta, and then reflect, is there any difference between the mind of the Guru, the Buddha, and my own mind? Actually, there is not the slightest difference. It's one and the same. It is a single mental continuum. Also in the Vajrakilaya practice, it says, since primordial times, you and I are of one single nature, and yet I have wandered ignorantly in samsara, and so forth. So it is due to our ignorant grasping at a duality, that we wander in samsara. And in order to become freed, we practice the Guru. We accomplish the Guru's enlightened body, speech, mind, activities, and qualities. So therefore, the Guru really is seen as the actual Buddha. Like the Dalai Lama, like His Holiness the Dalai Lama, he really is the actual Buddha, even greater than the Buddha himself in activities. And so that is now, from my own personal perspective. So what we need to get at is the mind of the Guru. And so when they use their speech to teach us, they are expressing the state of their mind, the nature of their mind. And it is because they have realized it that their words also can then benefit others. And then from that understanding, the qualities within ourselves arise. So it all arises from the Guru's qualities. His teachings arises, and the activities come from his enlightened qualities that he had realized. And so here then, in the text, then it goes through each of those elements, which are outer signs of inner realization. For example, now it says, so the sun that obliterates ignorance. So it is a sun that clears away ignorance. For example, at nighttime you can't see anything. And the darkness of the mind is the darkness of not seeing your true nature. Also in the Vajrakilaya practice, it speaks about the secret sun of primordial wisdom rises, and so forth. So that is the sun that clears away the darkness of the mind. On the outer level, the external sun illuminates the world, but the sun inside yourself illuminates the darkness of ignorance. For as long as there is this sense of me, you are in a state of pitch black darkness. And once you realize the nature of the mind, that light begins to rise, and you see that everything is non-dual. And so really reflect on that self. Do I really exist or not? And so we can understand that, for example, on the basis of the scriptures and logical reasoning. And there is many ways to explain the fact that that the I, the self, does not really exist, and because the self doesn't exist, also others do not inherently exist. And that realization is the sun shining. And when it rises now, it is that sun that will become enlightenment. And it is that sun that will guide you on the path, show you the path. And so once you have found it, you can also establish others on that path. So that is what the Guru does, and that is the mind, what the mind of the Guru does, and that mind we need to obtain. That is what we need to get. It says here, so it obliterates ignorance. So the sun kind of obliterates the like the moon clears away sorrow, and the sun obliterates ignorance. So sorrow is cleared away. So the sorrow that's cleared away is the torment caused by the afflictive emotions. the afflictive emotions are, so the moon has a cooling quality, and the afflictive emotions are very hot in quality. For example, hatred and jealousy are very turbulent, like a windstorm. And when we act on them, then we encounter many difficulties all the time. So by seeing the ultimate truth, the heat, the torment of these afflictive emotions is dispelled, is cleared away. So then next it says, so there is seated the mighty Guru Bhima Dakpotsal, and then out of wrathful compassion, you manifest a red form filled with fury. So his red form, sorry. Guru Rinpoche appears in a wrathful form, just like when a mother is getting a little angry at a naughty child. It is just like all sentient beings, due to being completely ignorant, are in a state of insanity, and they need to be tamed. It's just like a mother tames her child. And often they cannot be tamed through peaceful means. So here they are tamed through wrathful means, and then their flesh, blood, and bones are offered, and so on. So that is what we are introduced to here, that in a very direct, forceful way, as opposed to the peaceful way, sentient beings are forcefully brought to the natural state of the mind. This is also explained in the Vajrakhilaya practice, for example. So in the secret mantra, it is, especially in the wrathful activities, that through knowing the nature of the mind, one instantly knows the afflictive emotion. And that's something that we can recognize. For example, when very strong, very fierce moment of anger arises, you can recognize that, you can see that instantly if you're mindful. And so then you see that the anger actually arises together with mindfulness. So it actually is one. It's in a way co-emergent. So that means that anger and mindfulness are not actually separate, two separate things. And when you recognize that, then the anger will go away. But of course, if you do not recognize it, then the mind just becomes angry. So then when you realize the ultimate truth and you sustain awareness, the anger goes away, all the affliction goes away. And that's the quality of the wrathful activity. And so the next it says, the 4 maras are sliced by your sharp-pointed fangs. Speaking about the 4 maras, which is also explained in a Vajrakhilaya practice, where there is a verse on the 4 maras, the mara of the aggregates, the mara of the of death, the Lord of Death, the mara of the afflictive emotions, and the mara of the gods. And with regard to that, we have already given many explanations in the past, so you know about that. And so basically, in brief, the reason why we call them Mara or demon because they cause suffering. Their nature is suffering. That is why they are called demons. And then, in acting the 9 moods of dance, you hold the Vajra of method and the bell of wisdom. So regarding the 9 moods of dance, we already also discussed them yesterday. So we have said that there are 3 of the body, 3 of the speech, and 3 of the mind. And so the Vajra and the bell are a sign of having unified emptiness and compassion. So it is an outer representation of the inner state of mind. So for example, these 9 moods of dance, as I mentioned yesterday, are, for example, something I myself have observed when Tsewang Rinpoche was here. To me, he seemed to really have this kind of expression. So it's really his inner realization being expressed to the outside. His mind really of love and compassion is expressed on the outside in these 9 different ways. But what it all is a mind that is empty and compassionate. And that's the nature of all the deities. So the form of the deity appears and yet lacks any inherent existence. And the quality of the deity is that it possesses perfect, omniscient wisdom and compassion and power. And all of these qualities arise from the quality of emptiness and compassion. So actually, compassion is also emptiness. It's not that they are two separate things. Because when you look at compassion, where actually is compassion? Is there some kind of separate compassion? There is no separate compassion anywhere. It is actually the empty nature of the mind. It is when you realize its nature. It is a compassionate nature that is empty and that realizes that self and other are indivisible. So such a person who realizes that has realized the ultimate truth. And so these signs here and symbols are symbols of the outer representation of inner enlightened qualities, of having realized that. So for us, even though we might understand emptiness, and emptiness is explained in so many different ways, now we speak about it as outer emptiness and inner emptiness and all kinds of different ways of explaining emptiness, but even if we comprehend all of that, if we still continue to have these thoughts of me and I, then there is no real use to having understood emptiness, because there still is a duality. And ultimately, the mind must be realized as non-dual, just like space. And that's really the essence of emptiness. Within space, you have no duality, no division. So that is basically a sign of emptiness and compassion, all of these symbols here. And so then next it says, so then having destroyed the 5 poisons, the 5 Buddha families embellish your crown. So the crown ornament of the 5 Buddha families is a sign of having liberated the 5 afflictive emotions into the 5 kinds of wisdom. And then next it says, having purified karmic formations, you are adorned with clattering bones. So we have karmic formation of those 5 aggregates. We have perception and karmic formation, which kind of come together. And so first there is feelings. There is the feelings of the 8 sense consciousnesses. And then through that, because we connect through feeling, through sensation, then there is a kind of a striving toward them. So you think that I want, for example, I want that. I want to experience pleasure and so on. And so that is what we call a karmic formation. And it starts in the womb of the mother when one takes birth. Karmic formation so begins to form. And so then it develops into the more coarse forms of the afflictions and so on. So we have the 6 or the 8 sense various consciousnesses, and this is how they manifest in an immature, unripened state. So when they become liberated, then those 8 consciousnesses become, or kind of sensations, become the 8 male bodhisattvas, and then their corresponding object, the 8 female bodhisattvas. So basically all becomes the deity. So this karmic formation is this grasping then at, I want this, I want pleasure. For example, I'm looking at my cup of tea, and the moment I look at it, instantly I feel I want to have it, I want to drink it. So that's this karmic formation that arises due to a dualistic perception of self and other, and then the wish to enjoy pleasure. And so then with karma forms, and we reach out and then have a sip of tea, we drink and so on. And so who really is the one engaging in this karmic formation, these activities in acting? Actually, whatever you partake of, all this activity is, you're confused, you're kind kind of interacting with, in a confused way, is a confused interaction with your own self-projections. Actually, none of that possesses any true existence and exists just like space, inseparably. So that is the karmic formation. So then having utterly destroyed erroneous views, you wear a full brocade cloak. So then there's various kinds of erroneous, wrong views. For example, there is misconception, or like a kind of a partial understanding, or so a lack of understanding, a wrong understanding, or a partial understanding. And there's various views. We speak about maybe 36 different kinds of wrong views and so on. And so a sign of having destroyed all of these erroneous views is his brocade cloak, his robes. And the reason why the robes, the cloak, is a sign of that erroneous view is because, just to give an ordinary example, for example, if somebody walks in butt naked, you would scream out and you would say, "Look at that! Somebody's completely naked. What is he thinking?" But actually, what's actually the big deal about it? Because everybody has that same body. Everybody has that nakedness. Naturally, it's very natural. Being naked is very natural. So why are we so shocked, and why are we so embarrassed about it? And actually, Milarepa also himself had said, you are embarrassed about things where there's nothing to be embarrassed about. So for this reason, the cloak is something that covers the body, therefore represents erroneous views, because like embarrassment and things like that are related to erroneous views. And so these various lists of erroneous views, maybe also the Kempos will know about that. But ultimately, the ultimate erroneous view is really the dualistic grasping at self and other. And there is no erroneous or wrong view which is not included in that. It all comes from this fundamental misconception of self and other. And then it says, and having subjugated God demons, your hair billows up into the sky, and having conquered the planetary beings in space, your 3 eyes flash like lightning. So regarding the various beings and the God demons and billowing in the sky, the hair billowing in the sky, and the planetary beings and so on, there's various beings in the form realms and formless realms, the beings with bodies and without bodies. And all of these beings experience suffering. So this is a sign that he goes to benefit all of those sentient beings and eliminates all of their suffering. So it is a sign that he acts for the benefit of all sentient beings with great compassion.
tata sabla sao satang jena de tela parti yelu taposi khama du mang mi songlo ma tong pama tola te ta ko de tamchi na ta zata jogala so so mu te tamje nebe de dona zokham rumi jehio kamsam jena da ti tamchi na ngwe jerang je lengi lesa ja pa te pinchi yu le de ba yo pa te tamchi 이 동각도 못 다다다 내가 찐이들 핀수 종로 봐서 송미가 다 핀수 내가 차인 거요래 다다 가진 제 통도 다 뭐지 레사 이런 데버 어때 탐지 다 이해를 잘 통고요래 이 탐지 돈나 가리 남미진 데버 레사 나티 데버스 미인 거요 얘를 좀 주지 데버 레 가리사로 파피바 좀 설피바다 파노바다 설노바다 거래 좀 주지 Tiri tere nyongwa jimtui tene, tiri ta leti nyongna, sepa jimtui nyongwa jimtui tene, tiri leki namjaka tene khoro ngu yore, tiri dong ri sanperi tene, tiri tata testum goro buchi driba dong suni nyong suni kari nyong gu yore tene. O, ta dongi sharuna, dongi ti tani tene, tiri ranga tiri tata tangduli yore, o, donga tiri chakshi yore tene, rupa kuru yore. 대화는 길에 대화 소도 뭐지 동네 지제 동네 커서 대답이 나한테랑서는 이때랑은 누가 맡아봐 이것도 레박차 파상 변 레기 준게 변에서는 그 샤사와디나 다다 소차 춥차 마무데 랑가 칸나노 샤도 자자자지야 마 파산에 야마 철살다 파사로 오늘 대 실을 비바 가리요래 마신 누가 가리 실은 어디 레데 삼바된 이제는 나디 레산 오 내들 샤산 다다지 디기야마 그 철살 땅에 파사로 다른 파다 이게 니디 그 전화대 초는 코와를 타성디 다니 양장 거점해 봐 거기 유체에서 내가 거기 제준 초도 변 사적습에 샤사를 대사하면 내가 제준 초도 마시를 가해 다 파사고 양장 철사를 데리고 하자는 들이 모두 콜로도 차례도 콜와지 대답을 따와져 고바라 삼바다 이제 돈이 이제 나서 보게 들이 대삼지 동에 다니지 줘봐 데르 따따따 심지 삼지 동데 무서다 돈이 이거 뭐요래 대나게들이 나타도 나타도 남대 제가 라니 소되면서 너는 동에 남대 제가 내가 소송 거 와서 대답을 당마 요배 어떻게 되게 농담이 용서 평균화 제가 약고 차도 제가 니바들 제가 약고 차서 다다 토지 토자거라도 뭐 다티 답지 세거 다다 따라 들이 랑통 제시 dimde sabtung mare tesung mare.
So here are the so that's the god and demons with the hair billowing in sky, and with his hair billowing into the sky, and then the three eyes flashing like lightning bolts, which is related to conquering the planetary beings. So and that is according to those words, but what we need to understand is this term, this demons, and how they actually appear. So they appear out of ignorance, and when it ripens into the result of taking birth in the various places of samsara. We speak about the three samsaric existences, or sometimes we say the three rams, as in the ram on the ground, on the surface, then below the surface, and above the surface. So then there's also the mental bodies in the bardo and so on, kind of in the intermediate states, those beings who were not able to go to the Pure Lands, but also who didn't go to the lower realms, who are kind of blown around like a feather in this intermediate state of uncertainty. So there's various beings with bodies and without bodies in the three kind of realms of samsaric existence. And so these beings, like demons, or evil spirits, and so on, often come to cause harm. And when they come to cause harm, karmic debt is being purified. So there is always a karmic connection. It is said that so the cause is negative karmas and obscurations, and the conditions are the appearance of the evil spirits, demons, and obstructors, whether they have a body or are without a body. There is some karmic connection that causes them to arise. So there certainly is a connection from a previous life, and therefore they arise, they appear. So it comes back to karma in brief. When karma is created, the result will ripen. And when it ripens, and then after the result of full maturation has ripened, then next the result corresponding to the cause ripens. So then whatever karma was created, corresponding to that, a certain experience and a certain kind of activity ripens. And depending on that, harm is being caused or benefit is being caused. And so in this way, karma goes around. And so for example, we say that Guru Rinpoche was one who had subjugated. So he's one who had subjugated those demons and gods and demons and various beings. And so how did he defeat them or subjugate them? How do we defeat them? So that is when, first of all, when suffering arises, when any kind of obstruction arises, one accepts that. So Guru Rinpoche had developed a perfect patient forbearance, accepting anything that arises. And as we have said, that all suffering then is seen as like a purification of our negative karma, and therefore an enhancement to our practice. And so when there's a saying that says, when I experience happiness, then I dedicate it as merit. And when there is suffering, then I take it upon myself with patient acceptance. And if you're in such a state, then there is nothing at all that can harm you in any way. And so then, through encountering an obstructor, then this karmic connection, this negative connection, the negative karma, the imprints, can become interrupted or severed off. For example, it's also when we are eating meat, for example, there certainly is a karmic connection. So when you're eating meat, then with 100% certainty, then that being must have eaten you in a previous life. And so now, therefore, in this life, you're eating that being. And that goes around in circles like that. So here it is important to understand this karmic connection. And what's the benefit of understanding that? And what's the fault of not understanding that? If you understand this, then you know that if I eat the meat with a self-grasping mind, then now I'm eating it, next it will eat me in a future life. Things go around like that. But also, on the other hand, today, when I'm eating this meat, I can cut through this cycle of karmic delusion and dualistic grasping. I can cut through this cycle of samsara so that this being does not again have to wander in samsara, so that this being becomes liberated. So this is actually how the bodhisattvas would eat meat. But if you don't understand this point, then you will just eat the meat, and then that goes around in circles, and later you will be eaten in return, and then again you will eat that being. So it turns like the wheel of a car. This is what we call samsara, or cyclic existence. So Guru Rinpoche, through his realization of the view and his meditation, his state of emptiness and compassion, had perfect patient acceptance of any kind of difficulty. And so there are many kinds of sentient beings who are demonic and who cause all kinds of harm. And there's all kinds of different problems like suffering, such as sickness and so forth. But there is a way to take it all as the path, to practice with all of them, and that is according to the 37 practices, to practice patient acceptance. And then it goes like in the saying, when there is happiness, it is dedicated as merit, and when there is suffering, I take it on, and I practice with it. And so through this instruction, then this negative cycle of negative karmic connection with all of these demons and so forth is severed. And so that is again a sign here. So there is an outer symbol that represents, a sign that illuminates or represents the meaning of what it represents.
Data Todi Tojakala to Data Todi Dato Tasam Tonkari Tunguri. Seven de look over Ashila Tita, the only Tegane to Chilko, Aditon Tunguri, Tata, and some yacht riches over. Shot with the Tata to the Tojakar, and this was the custom girl long, the Chilam Tam to some Namjinati, some custom go to Dado. So out the thought at all, not so custom around charge to the ore, a total song we already. That and some job in it.
And then at the end, so then the last line Rinpoche read was the praise to the Wrathful King's form with symbols and signs. So the previous one was also about the demons. And as we mentioned, so these the symbols and the signs summarize that, and they show the nature of the nature of his realization, which is the mind that is free from arising, abiding, and cessation. That mind which is the Dharmakaya, and that is the mind that he had realized. And that is represented here by all these symbols and signs. And so that is the next line is also an ultimate praise, which is very similar. It speaks about these qualities, how everything has the nature of the three kayas. So it is said that everything, all phenomena, have or are subsumed or embraced by the three kayas. So everything is encompassed by this expanse of the three kayas. So that's the meaning of the ultimate praise. And for us, if in order to realize this view, the nature of the mind, we take what arises as the path, and as a result, finally, what we take as the path, what we realize then is the nature of the three kayas within our own minds. So for today, we stop the teachings here. And so all of us and all beings in the 6 realms are nirmana kayas. We are all nirmana kayas.
We'll do the dedication prayer in the yellow prayer book on page 18. Lord Jigten Sumgön's dedication. Glorious, holy, venerable, precious, kind, root and lineage gurus, divine assembly of Yidams, assemblies of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, heroes and heroines, Yogini and her assembly of Dakinis, all you dwelling in the 10 directions, please heed me. By the power of this vast root of virtue, may I benefit all beings through my body, speech, and mind. May the afflictions of attachment, hatred, ignorance, pride, and jealousy not arise in my mind. May thoughts of fame, reputation, respect, honor, and concern for this life not arise for even a moment. May my mind stream be moistened by loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta, and may I become a spiritual master with good qualities equal to the infinity of space. May I gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra in this very life. At the moment of death, may I not experience the suffering of being abruptly severed from this life. May I not suffer a terrible death. May I not die confused by wrong views. May I not experience an untimely death. May I die joyfully and happily in the great luminosity of the mind itself, in the crystal clarity of Dharmata. May I in any case gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra at the time of death or in the bardo. For this realm encircled by snow-covered mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness. Tenzin Gyatso, Lord Chenrezig, may you remain steadfast until the end of samsara. Embodiment of the 3 jewels, great being who upholds and increases the teachings of the Shakya lions, supreme are your activities of guiding others with your perfect deeds. May you, the precious Guru who accomplishes everything spontaneously, live long. Holder of the teaching of the Lord Drigungpa, great Lord of the Three Jewels, through the power of your peerless compassion and the holy Dharma's peace and light, you bring relief to beings. May your life be long. The one known in the noble land as Arya Deva emanated into the Gar clan of eastern Tibet as Chodingpa, the heart son of Dingding Gompo. May the life of the glorious Garchen remain steadfast for 100 eons. Page 28. May the teachings of the great Drigungpa Ratna Shri, Master of Interdependence, omniscient Lord of Dharma who has seen all knowable things, be upheld until the end of cyclic existence through study, practice, hearing, contemplation, and meditation. Your 1,000 arms are the 1,000 wheel-turning kings. Your 1,000 eyes are the 1,000 Buddhas of this fortunate eon. Your love is boundless like space. I supplicate to the Bodhisattva Chenrezig. Oh, Om.
Everybody sangha home. Thank you.
Thank you, Rinpoche. A quick announcement. Please join us this afternoon. Lama Abu will be sharing his personal stories of his Guru devotion for Garchen Rinpoche at 3:30. So please join us. Thank you.